Welcome everybody to KUAF's The Lunch Hour. I'm excited to introduce our guest today. We have Amos Cochran.
Hello.
And we have Matt. Tell me how to pronounce your last name.
Eiler.
Matt Eiler from the Fayetteville Library 641 Deli.
Yes.
Do y'all say 641 or 641?
It goes both.
It goes both ways.
Either
Okay.
way.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to have both of y'all here today. This is like the most like informal interview. So just like we're just talking right now. So like if y'all have questions for each other, like feel free to chime in, feel free to talk, all that good stuff.
Great.
I'll open up on the walk here.
The treacherous
on the treacherous walk here. For y'all don't know, my office is like maybe 3 blocks down,
which is not very far.
It's not very far. But it is up. This is uphill, and so I had to walk a little bit uphill. So I'm a little
bit.
I'm a little winded.
Well, I'm glad you made it.
I was
a little worried.
But on the walk here, I was on your website and I was looking at the trailer for what was the film that the trailer for the film you scored?
Davion.
Davion.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, man, this is good.
It's good.
And I wanted to ask, what is the difference between going in on and what is that whole process like? Like, and how does that differ from like creating music just to put out?
So are you asking the difference between scoring a film and writing my own music, or like scoring a trailer and writing? Because like they're all everything is so different.
I guess that's so different.
Yeah, everything's so different. But just to keep it simple, like the difference between scoring a film and writing my own music. That's kind of what you want to know, the question.
Yeah.
All right. So it's all process, and at the end of the day, the process isn't that different. I'm going to sit down and write something and decide whether or not I like it. Yeah. When it's my own work, it's great because like I'm the only person that has to go. I like that. With a film, there's always producers, there's always directors. There's always really good conversations about what the thing should be, what we're trying to get to. And so I think the short difference, without getting like too specific, is film music is really serving someone else's story. And my music is whether or not I like it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think it kind of it makes me think about you in the menu of 641 Deli, because I feel like there's a story in that as well, like with the red beans and rice and like the whole like homegrown feel. Talk to me about like what it was like creating that menu and the story you were trying to tell in that. Were you trying to tell a story in that?
Well, we not necessarily tell a story, but we were trying to please, a big different array of people.
Yeah.
We've got the fancy pants that come in there all the way down to the homeless that come in there that need a place to stay. So we were looking for items that were going to appease everyone, that were going to be tasty but not too fancy. We still have a bunch of kids running around there, so we have like our apple butter and jelly sandwich and the just plain cheese. But like with the beans and rice, we get our Ralston rice donated to us from Ralston Family Farms. It's $1 for a cup, $3 for a bowl. We try to keep it affordable for everyone. If you do need it, we will buy it for you. With different cooking programs and whatnot, we've got, I guess we do have a lot of stories to tell, and a lot more that we can tell with the expansion. It's only growing. That back lot's going to be something new, hopefully this year.
Oh wow!
So it's exciting.
How often does the menu change?
Well, we are actually going to be changing it next week.
So new stories.
We're not necessarily changing, but we're adding to it.
Oh, right.
Okay.
We're going to keep everything on there, and we've got a couple of new hot sandwiches coming out, a couple of new salads.
Yeah.
So, a lot of new fun stuff. And our catering menu is totally different from our deli menu.
Yeah.
Since we do cater the library, they have all the different office spaces. And with the event center, we've got new programs and events that can happen. And so it's exciting. It's a lot.
I like the idea of like being, you guys being very flexible, but also it seems like, you want to be very accessible to like all different kinds of people.
Absolutely.
Which I remember one of the first few times I walked in and you made like a grilled cheese for me, and but like you let me put meat on it, and you was like, yeah, we could do that. And you kind of like
Sure.
you was just open to like
We're
even,
not
like,
quite Subway, but we
Yeah.
aim to please.
and still that's my go-to sandwich every time.
Right,
I
it's
go.
good,
Like,
it's
every time
good.
I go there, I get soup and I get a grilled cheese with the turkey
And yeah, most of our soups of the days are vegan or vegetarian.
Yep.
So, we can do whatever there, really.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about like was that the intention, like to be accessible to everyone, to make sure that this is a place where like no matter what kind of walk of life you come from, that
For sure.
you can engage with this and enjoy it.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was a big part of it, especially with the programming and whatnot. With like the kimchi slaw and the turkey sandwich. Not a lot of people know kimchi, so
Yeah.
we do kind of we dumb it down a little bit. I make a little Asian slaw to go with the kimchi slaw, so it's not as spicy or as twangy. But try to introduce people into some fun stuff that they might not try, and just have a few regular staples for them too.
And I feel like there's a similarity with you, man. Like the idea of like, how would you define the genre that you're in? Would you define it as classical?
Oh
or?
man, it's kind of this post-classical electronic hybrid thing.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
at
That's
the
it,
show,
yeah, that's it.
the other, it's almost. I was thinking about this. I think about this a lot, and I never come up with a great answer. But I almost feel like what my music does actually runs closer to electronic music
Yeah.
and jazz than it does classical at times.
That
But
makes
it's
sense.
presented and it's handed and it's dressed up
Yeah.
as classical music. Because you're like, oh, there's string players.
Right.
Classical music.
But like, you know,
what they're doing is almost more textural based. And what I'm doing is more rhythmic, repetitive
That's
than real
real.
classical music. So it pulls from more like modern classical music, which modern classical is such a strange term.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mix of a bunch of things, but it has this like electronic through line to me. And the more that I play a lot of that stuff, it's like electronic music if it didn't have a beat a lot of the times. So
That was my first impression of you, was that you were this electronic style, because I saw you at Artist 360.
oh yeah,
that was my first
That's
time.
a whole. That was a whole.
That was a whole
That was a whole
different
different thing. That's actually a so.
And I was
okay.
like, wait, this is the
Right. So that's new.
Okay,
That's
okay,
very
that's
fresh.
very
That's
new.
much. That
okay,
stuff
because I
is
was
much
like,
newer.
I didn't know.
yeah.
Initially, I didn't like. I had heard about you, but I didn't
Oh, that's
know that
funny.
it
That's
was
the first
like
thing you
that.
ever heard?
That was the first thing I
Oh,
ever
okay.
heard, and I was
That
like,
was crazy.
Dang, this is amazing.
Thank you. So what I played the other day at the lunch hour.
Yeah.
Most of that stuff is older.
Okay.
I mean, older. I've only been doing this for like 3 or 4 years.
No way.
So yeah, I've only been like I've been doing film stuff for quite a while, but only my own music for like since 2018. So
wow.
not that long. But the stuff you heard at Crystal Bridges, that was like as new. I had written that piece like a week before, and we were going to do a dance piece actually for that, but the dancer got COVID and couldn't go, and we were always slotted to do a thing, and I said, I have this new piece I'm writing. I wasn't ready to play it at all. That piece has gotten so much better.
Dang.
But so yeah, I think the more I'm actually starting to write all kinds of more electronic based stuff. But if you take it all and like strip away the sound and just talk about it conceptually,
Yeah.
I think the concepts behind a lot of the tunes are really more rooted in like what electronic music does, where it's these sort of repetitive patterns that go through
Yep.
these sections and loop back around. And then there's these textures that are created, but there's no beat.
Yep.
And so you don't go, oh, they can't be electronic music if there's no beat. So it's almost like ambient classical music.
Ambient classical.
Maybe.
Is that
ambient.
a new thing?
I don't think so. Nothing's a new thing, but
You're right.
I like ambient classical music. It's kind of cool. I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. And then there's some tunes like Unscored where most of everything I'm playing, this is the thing too, everything is written out for the most part.
Really?
Like most every single thing that's played, I either have it written out perfectly, I'm going to play it a certain way. But there's a few tunes where I'm just I know the chords and I'm just like messing around with the chords, which feels way more like jazz.
Yeah.
The string players, they're playing what's written, but what I'm doing is not prescribed, and I'm just laying these chords in occasionally. And like I'm trying. I mean, I'm not McCoy Tyner, but I'm trying to think more like if I were McCoy Tyner, or something along those lines. That's more just accompaniment, and I'm not playing a specific part. So it just depends on the tune.
Yeah.
But I like ambient classical music. That's
like
my
that.
answer. Final answer. Ambient classical music.
And and tell me a little bit about Arcade Now.
Oh, wow.
Because I feel like that is that what kind of led to Arcade Now?
Oh gosh, this is a whole nother podcast, but that's okay. We can do this real quick. So Arcade Now was a 2-day music event that I put on in the River Valley.
Yeah.
And it spurred from, so I had the opportunity in 2018 to present some of my work. And I didn't want to do it in a bar because I grew up playing bass in bands, actually, like jam bands. And that's where all of this started, yeah. And I knew I didn't want to perform this in a bar, and I thought concert halls were a little bit stuffy. So what I found was like there was this gap. Like I wanted to present the new work I was making needed to be presented in a different space. And so I found a space in Fort Smith called the Pro Pack Building, incredible space, and it's literally nothing. Like this is an empty building. We moved a piano in, we moved everything in, and did the show. And I realized the people's reaction to experiencing something in a totally different space was completely different than if they were to go to the bar or they were to go, we're so kind of accustomed to, and we're so trained, if we're going to go to the movies, before we even get in there, we know what that experience is going to be. Yeah. So what I realized was for myself as a performer and the players I had and the audience, everybody really had a different experience. And so all of my shows then for the next few years, that was my goal. It's like to never totally repeat myself and to always present things in different places. And the way that was informing my work to myself is like, this is incredible from a performer point of view. I love this.
I was going to say, does it, as you change different spaces, does the music change as well?
I mean, it's the same music, but the way you're handing it over is very different. And the way the audience is perceiving it is different.
I feel they pay more attention to the music rather than each other like they do at the bar.
They do, because if they're at the bar or even at a symphony, like you're going to pay attention, but before you even get there, you're like, I'm going to be sitting here.
Going to be quiet,
and I'm going to be looking over here.
Yeah.
So I thought, because this really started to inform my work, and so getting to Arcade Now, I have to set it up that way.
No, that's
so
perfect.
Arcade Now became this thing of like, I want to give this opportunity to other people that are creating in this similar, different space, because this ambient classical music space, or whatever. It has. So what I looked around the region, and a lot of my friends, I loved what they were doing, but I thought the space that they presented it was wrong. I thought they do this cool thing, but they're doing it at Smoke and Barrel, and there's nothing wrong with Smoke and Barrel, but if their song is 7 minutes long and the beginning's quiet and the end's quiet, no one's listening to that part. And I would go nuts listening to some of my friends play in different places. So Arcade Now became a place for me to curate a space for my friends to come play, and not just my friends, but other people around the region. And so that's what it was. I didn't play at Arcade Now. Arcade Now I was totally the curator, which I had never done before.
I was gonna say, what was that experience like? Do you like going from, what is it like going from artist to like curator to like, now you're thinking about the whole experience and not just like the piece that you have to perform.
Right. So I like that I played for a couple of years and knew what really I needed as a performer to really feel good and to really feel comfortable. Yeah. So that's where it started. At the end of the day, this was not about the audience for me. This was about my players feeling as comfortable as they could on stage. It's sounding as good. They just feel generally taken care of. So it was a very different kind of work. But it was really wonderful to sit in the back of the room and just listen, because I never get to do that. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you experienced this, but do you get to just go out and have food? Because you're so immersed in doing the thing that a lot of times you don't have the opportunity to really experience it.
Yeah, I do, and I always catch myself always looking at the back of house and seeing what's going on, and not really paying attention to the front. I've done everything from serving, bartending, front of house management, back of house management. I've done everything you can in the service industry. Yeah. So that's all I pay attention to, is what all the workers and everything is going on.
Right.
But it is nice to sit there.
It is nice to just sit back there. And so what I ended up doing was I put together a really awesome team of people. Very small team, but very trusted team. I got some of the best people around that were really doing cool stuff. And I told them, I said, bring work to this that may not fit in other places. Like, I want you to present things that are different. I want you to try different things. And so at the end of the day, I just kind of sat back and sent a whole lot of emails and, organized everything, but I just got to experience it. On the back end, I will say it was a very different kind of fulfillment from performing.
That's real. Yeah.
And the fulfillment, to be totally honest with you, I prefer the fulfillment of performing to the fulfillment of we put on this really cool thing. However, it was neat. I loved it. The community loved it. My players just had a great. It was the best 2 nights of music I've ever seen. Period. And so I love it, and I'm curious to see where it goes in the future.
You know, I feel like that's a, and this is a question as well. Like, do you feel like because I feel like a lot of artists are doing that. Like, I feel like a lot of artists are like they're having to put on their own thing, you know, because of maybe the lack of spaces within Northwest Arkansas. Or I feel like, you know, they're in the same position. They go like, well, this space might be conducive for this type of music, but not for what I want to do. And so, like, I think we find artists doing what you did more and more in the area. And I feel like that's a good thing.
No, I think it's a great thing, and I think what it is, I think is as artists, I say this a lot when I'm talking about things, and I've heard a Brian Eno interview from Germany in like the 80s. If you dig on YouTube, like Brian Eno in the 80s in Germany, these great like TV interviews of Brian Eno, and he had this great point. He said, as artists, we have 2 jobs. The first one's quite obvious, and that's what we usually do at the beginning: is we create the thing, we make the thing. But our second job, and what is actually perhaps more important, is creating the context for that work to be experienced. So if you actually start with context and then let the work happen, it's going to be presented in the right way.
That's real.
And I think a lot of what people are doing is saying, I have an idea and it needs to be hung on the wall with the right things, or it needs to be over here with the right things. Because, you know, if you take, you know, we had Bang and the Stringsmen play, which was a wild combination of things. It was just so cool to have Bang play with a string quartet. If you take that and you put it, you know, at George's, it's a thing. If you take that and you put it after a Broadway show at the Walton Arts Center in the lobby, it's a thing. If you put it in the lobby of the Walton Arts Center after a classical show, it's a different thing. If you put it at Arcade Now, it's a different thing. So the idea of you can take the exact same thing and what you surround it with and the context you give it is what really turns it into something unique.
That's real. And I feel like the context like plays into a lot of what you guys do as well. Like, I mean, we talked about it in a sense of like, you know, the library attracts, you know, all different kinds of people.
Sure.
But I feel like even with Northwest Arkansas, you have this weird mix, right? Like you have the like, you know, the wealthiest of wealthiest, and then also like very like, you know, the poorest of poor as well here, and the idea of like creating a space where like, you know,
everybody's welcome.
Everybody is
Sure.
welcome, and then everybody can eat, and everybody feel, you know, satisfied from eating.
Right.
I think that's incredible, and that's. And I'm curious, do you feel like there's a lot of spaces like that in Northwest Arkansas that like, you know, food-wise that allow that sort of mix to be present?
I feel like there could be more.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it is fairly secluded. Some of the best places are some of the most expensive places. And it's not even necessarily the type of food. It's not all 5-star. I mean, it is, but like there's delicious pizza places around here.
Yeah.
And you can either spend $100 for 2 people at one place or 50 at another. And, you know, the quality's definitely there, but it's different. It's all good, but I don't think it's necessarily accessible for everybody.
Yeah.
So no, I think that could be better as far as accessibility. It also depends on if you're going as local as you can. That tends to be a little more expensive, especially in the off seasons.
Yeah.
All organic. It depends on what you're shooting for what you can afford to do and what you can't afford to offer people, and how much overhead you're looking to make. And, you know, being the library, they're not looking to make a giant profit. They want to cover what they need to, but that way we can make it accessible to everybody.
And I'm curious a little bit about like your personal journey. Was being part of something that's like, you know, accessible to everybody, was that important for you personally? Or
Absolutely.
Was that like...
And it was just a great opportunity to be the first deli and the first library in the United States.
Yeah.
That's
Wait,
just
this
something.
is the first...
This is the first deli that has ever been opened up in a library. There have been little cupcake shops and whatnot, but this is the first one with a teaching kitchen that's been fully operated from the library.
Wow.
So it's been a great experience, and you know, we've only been open a year. The new expansion's only been open just over a year, so we're still growing and still have a lot that we can do and a lot that we're gonna do. It's just taken us a little bit to get everything figured out. It's a big project.
Dang. Talk a little bit about the cooking classes that you guys offer.
Once a month, we do one that is Conquering the Kitchen. It's an adult class. It teaches people to not be scared of certain items that they think might be a little intimidating, which really aren't that bad. We've done roux and eclairs, which I did not teach the eclairs. I'm not very good at baking. I am not a precise baker. I like to add a pinch of this and a little of that, and you can't do that in baking. But we show them that you can do it at home, that it's not that hard. Yeah. And that's once a month. It is free to the public. Registration opens 9 days before the class. Nice. All the dates are online on the events calendar. I don't remember the name of it. We just started this series. It's once the first 3 months and the last 3 months of the year. It's like knife safety skills.
Oh, wow.
I'll be teaching things like that, kitchen safety, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we're expanding on that. We're getting new employees in hopefully soon to start expanding for serve safe qualification, serve safe management classes, all of that kind of stuff. So it'll be good.
Did you imagine that there would be maybe on a personal level too? Like, did you imagine that you could have those two things married, like cooking and also like community, like helping your community and in a very real, tangible way?
Right, not at this level, because our teaching kitchen, we can also rent out to the community. If you're a small business owner, a nonprofit, we've got different price levels, but you can rent it out for the day, for the week, to do, try out your new kitchen items or whatnot. Yeah. You've got a space that you don't have to dirty up your own kitchen and whatnot. You can dirty up ours. Nice. You do have to clean up after yourself, but it makes it a little easier when you've got pretty much anything accessible to you that you need pot and pan wise. And so yeah, it's fun.
Man, are y'all both from Arkansas?
I'm from Fayetteville.
You from Fayetteville?
I grew up in Bentonville. I've lived in Fayetteville for 30 years now, something like that.
Dang. So y'all have seen, I'm curious, from both of y'all standpoints, how has, the area changed, and how has that either made, what you guys do more difficult or helped in a little bit? I'm curious from y'all's perspective, because I'm not from here, so I'm still
yeah.
And even I'm from Chicago, but I've been here almost 10 years, and even in 10 years, it's changed
quite a bit in 10 years.
Drastically.
Go ahead, man.
I grew up in Bentonville. Lived there until 95, 96.
Okay.
Moved to Fayetteville. That's when I started my fine dining career. I worked at one of the few fine dining places, the 1936 Club. You might remember it from being around
Where
here.
was it?
Where San Leo was on Dixon Street.
Oh,
it's
okay.
the abandoned red brick building there next to Bordino's.
Yeah.
It was there and in at the mill, and then Blackboard's opened in Bella Vista, and those were about the three super nice places to eat.
Wow.
Just from there, it's only gotten better as far as for food, service industry, I opened 21C in downtown Bentonville when they came in.
Oh, nice.
Opened up Oven and Tap in downtown Bentonville. That's when I started my deli career. Was after there I opened up the Whole Foods here in Fayetteville.
Dang.
And then opened up the new co-op whenever they moved to their new spot.
Mm-hmm. Dang.
So I've seen quite a bit of growth. Bentonville was quite Mayberry-ish whenever I left. There were only a couple
there was no reason to go to Bentonville.
No,
that's what I always put it to people. Is
and now everybody's going.
Yes, I know, and now it's different. It's funny. I mean, I remember it would be we'd go to Bentonville for track meets.
Yeah.
Or something.
That was about all that was going on.
Yeah.
That or a football game.
Yeah.
That was about it.
And there was just why would you go to Bentonville?
Yeah.
That's kind of how it felt like growing up.
And complete opposite now.
Yeah. So I grew up here, and I was here till I was about 20. And then I moved to the River Valley, down to Van Buren.
Okay.
And so I've had this interesting lens of here, because I had hit a point before I moved down there where I was kind of tired of it. I mean, you're in that place forever growing up, and it doesn't matter if it's fantastic, you're just sort of tired of it.
Yeah.
And so moving down to the River Valley, and that's when I started doing film scores, and I was playing, as far as the art stuff goes that I was doing, Dixon Street was great. I mean, I was in bands that played almost every night. It seemed there was a while there where I played constantly live. And then I stopped doing that when I moved. And so I've seen the area grow a lot. The way I put it, I left like right before the bike trail was put in, just to, like for a perspective. So I did not grow up like with the bike trail, which that seemed like the first big sort of infrastructural change that went on. You know, it's been an interesting, because at this point I work a lot. If I'm not working remotely, which I usually am, but if I'm working like concrete somewhere, it's between the two places.
Yeah.
And they're very, very different. And I love how they offer two very different things. Like what I can do down the river valley is more like a playground. I can just try out things and do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And then I can come here and be a little more focused on stuff. They're very, very different vibes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of my work is inspired by how different the two places are and like what I can sort of accomplish in either of them.
Yeah.
But Fayetteville, Northwest Arkansas and Bentonville, it's just sort of insane what's happened. And I grew up in a house across from Razorback Stadium. So
Oh, wow.
like my mom's house is still there, and that's where I'll stay tonight. Like I stay there a lot when I'm up here. That's where I am.
Yeah.
And so that whole area has just, all of it is just kind of turned into constant construction and just constant. It never really ends. But at the end of the day, that's how it goes. I'm not really against it. I'm not really for it. It just is. I just have to kind of deal with it.
I'm curious about like musical opportunities too.
Right.
And I know we've kind of married Fayetteville and Bentonville together, but like they're kind of like separate, and it seems like maybe becoming more and more separate. Like, I don't know, how do you feel? Like, do you feel like
for what is it for your opportunity, for like art opportunities?
Yeah, for like art opportunities and like being able to play in spaces, and like I feel like Bentonville might be trying a little bit harder to be more artsy and have more
I also
freedom
think
and spreading.
they're newer. They're just getting these new spaces.
Yeah.
So
I don't. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I was gonna say it just feels like they're trying hard. Well, I mean, they are obviously
trying harder. Yeah.
Yeah.
but I think they're just growing with it and taking advantage of the opportunity.
I think I'm an interesting person to ask that because I don't play a lot. I'm like very selective with when I do perform.
That's real, yeah.
Like really selective, because I played in bands on Dixon Street every night for 3 years and wondered why no one came. It's like, well, because I'm playing every night. Like, and you don't realize that till after the fact. And so I try to make live performance or installation work or anything that's like has my name on it. I try to make it very spread out, and I try to make it its own unique thing.
Yep.
So again, it's like you should come to the thing because I'm not going to do it again like that, and I'm also probably not going to do it again, period, at all for 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I really have a good answer for what is the scene like, because I don't really feel like I'm necessarily part of it. I kind of like swoop in occasionally and do a thing. And actually, I think 214 or the Medium or whatever it's called at this point, I think that is actually a cooler place to perform than
Springdale is
anywhere else. Honestly, like the space is there. Like there's that black box there, or there's the big stage, and we did right at we'll call it the end of the first massive wave of the pandemic. We did a show, and it was kind of the first thing that a lot of people came out to. It was great. I loved it. It was really cool. The people there are the sound guy, especially sound audio guy, John Farr, an amazing person.
John's
John.
great,
John's one of my favorite people to work with. So my answer of do I like Fayetteville or Bentonville to play better, I actually like Springdale, which I never thought that I would say. And like growing up in Fayetteville, I never thought I'd be like, oh, I go play in Springdale. Right. But I will say a lot of times I'm thinking about like, where do I want to present this or how do I want to do it? My mind tends to go to one of those two spaces in that building.
That's real.
I really like those two spaces because I think you can do a lot with, you can vary on a simple way. I also think Mount Sequoia, what Jessica DeBari's done, Creative Spaces, really love it up there. I had a studio actually when they first opened. I rented a studio for a little while and ended up just using the piano and stopped renting the studio and just to let me use the piano. Dang. So there's some rooms up there that I think are very cool. And again, all these spaces are very like, they're a little different. They're almost like rooms that you can transform. It's not like a George's or a Meter Gallery or I've never even really played. I mean, I've played at Crystal Bridges and I've done a few things kind of. Well, I played at Format, which is a field. That doesn't count.
That counts.
It counts, but it's like, so, there are interesting opportunities, I think, everywhere. But at the end of the day, I think the real interesting ones are the ones that you kind of come up with the idea for yourself. And that you go, okay, I like this context I've created. Now, who do I have to go talk to? That's so, how do I make that? I don't feel like there's a lot of, I think actually, what was the place down here? What was it called? Come on. Thank you.
Oh,
Stage 18. Stage 18
place,
was the closest thing to a perfect place to play.
Yeah,
except they didn't have a piano. But and I actually never played there. No, that's not true. I did play there for the film festival after party one time, which I don't like party. Never mind. It was not the right context. Context was bad for it. But that space, I would go watch things there.
Yeah.
And it was like it was so cool. And I
Yeah,
really
I
wish
miss-
something
yeah.
like that, because it demanded focus. And I
Yeah.
feel like so much of live performance is this kind of afterthought. And it's this thing that we expect to be over there by the pool table and by the
Yeah.
football game. And I'm just not interested in that, frankly. Like I have no interest in that. And so I don't feel like there's a venue proper around here that is really facilitating the thing that I dig.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It doesn't have to be. But that's like why Arcade Now was created.
Yep.
I mean, at the end of the day, it was like, well, I see this thing and I believe in this thing. And so we'll do it. I'll make it up. So that's kind of been, I don't know. This is a long answer to your question, but because the area has grown a lot, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily blossomed in a way that's super conducive to what I'm doing. But also, I don't think there's a lot of what I'm doing. Like at the end of the day, it's like Fayetteville's for college kids.
Yep.
College kids, at the end of the day, they want to go to George's and they want to go to those places and have fun after the football games, and they should have that. They don't really want to listen to ambient classical music, on a Friday night. Really, I mean, some people do, but it's those smaller things. And like what you're doing, I was thinking like the lunch hour. It's just like Arcade Now. They're the same. They live in the same vein. It was a thing that didn't exist.
Yep.
You sat around one day and went, oh, what if we did that?
Yeah.
And so those kinds of things are more interesting to me than any like brick and mortar building that has a PA already built into it.
Dang, that's the most beautiful way to end the podcast ever. Amos, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all for watching and tuning in. This is the lunch hour. Again, Amos Cochran, Matt Eiler. Thank y'all, and we'll see y'all next time.